The Garden of Eden, a dark fable. The garden was not just lush. It pulsed with life in a way that made the skin prickle. The leaves on the trees seemed to whisper secrets to one another, and the air smelled of sweet decay beneath the perfume of blooming flowers. Adam often wondered if the garden loved him, or if it merely tolerated him. He and Eve had been in this place for as long as memory stretched, though memory itself was slippery here. Time didn't pass in the way they thought it should. Daylight burned bright and hot until the shadows swallowed it whole. But no stars ever came. It was a constant twilight that bent the edges of their thoughts. "Eve," Adam said one evening, as they sat by a stream that hummed like a distant choir, "do you ever feel like we're being watched?" Eve's green eyes flicked to the treetops, where the darkness grew thick and hungry. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Always," she whispered. There was a tree at the heart of the garden. It wasn't like the others. Its bark was black, and its branches curled unnaturally like claws. The fruit it bore was a deep crimson red, and they hung low, as if daring someone to pluck them. The air around it was colder, heavier. The voice had told them not to touch it. The voice wasn't like theirs. It didn't rise from a throat. It came from the soil, the wind, the sky itself. But lately another voice had been whispering, threading through the trees, soft and serpentine. Eve heard it first. One evening, Eve wandered too close to the dark tree. Its fruit glistened like blood in the dim light. That's when she saw the creature. It wasn't a snake, not really. It was something worse. Its scales shimmered like oil on water, and its eyes burned with intelligence, malevolent and knowing. "Why don't you try one?" it hissed, its voice curling around her like smoke. Eve took a step back. "We're not allowed." The voice said, "The voice." The creature chuckled, a wet, slithering sound. "The voice doesn't want you to know the truth." "What truth?" The serpent coiled tighter around the branch, its body impossibly long, spiraling into the darkness. "That you're trapped. You don't belong here." "But one bite," it said, its voice dropping to a whisper, "and you'll see what I mean. You'll understand everything." Eve didn't tell Adam at first, but the idea gnawed at her, as relentless as the serpent's voice. The next night she returned to the tree and plucked a fruit. Its skin was smooth, but as she held it, she swore she felt something move inside. She took a bite. The taste was sweet at first, then bitter, then wrong. Her vision blurred, and for a moment she thought she saw the garden as it truly was, rotting, dying from the inside out. The trees weren't whispering. They were screaming. The soil wasn't rich. It was crawling with maggots. When she came to, the serpent was gone, but its laughter lingered. Eve convinced Adam to eat the fruit the next night. "Why?" he asked, hesitant, but her eyes burned with a hunger he couldn't deny. "You'll see," she said. "It's freedom." When he bit into it, the sky cracked open, and something like thunder but worse rolled through the garden. The voice didn't speak this time. It howled, and then the shadows came alive. They were cast out, but not gently. The garden seemed to turn on them, branches clawing at their skin, roots grabbing at their ankles. They ran until they were free, until they were out in a world that was cold and empty. But the garden wasn't done with them. They could still hear its whispers at night, low and mournful, as if it was calling them back, or calling something to them. And the serpent? It was out here too, somewhere in the darkness, watching, waiting. Eve sometimes woke in the night, certain she could feel its breath on her neck. They were free now, but they were never safe.